The darkness pressed against Otis Mercer's bedroom window, a winter midnight in Montana, as black as a sealed tomb. He lay in bed, fully awake, staring at the ceiling as his military-honed instincts refused to let him rest. Even after years of civilian life, his body maintained its warrior's vigilance. Every creak of the house settling, every whisper of wind against the walls, registered in his mind with tactical precision. His digital alarm clock cut through the darkness. 2:17 a.m. The temperature outside had dropped to 12 degrees, and the heating system groaned against the cold. Otis shifted his 6'4" frame, making the bed springs protest. Sleep wasn't coming tonight. It rarely did when Rylan wasn't home. The boy had been with Jean for his court-mandated weekend visit. Otis hated these visits, hated sending his son into that woman's orbit. But the courts had their rules, and he played by them. For now. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, its screen casting harsh blue light across the room. An unfamiliar number. Otis's stomach tightened. Late night calls carried bad news in their rings. "Mr. Mercer." A woman's voice, clinical and precise. "This is Nurse Matthews from Kalispell Regional Hospital." The words hit him like artillery fire. "What happened?" "It's your son, Rylan. You need to come immediately." Otis was moving before she finished speaking, muscle memory taking over as he grabbed clothes and car keys. "How bad?" "Sir, it's better if we discuss this in person." Something in her tone made his blood run cold. "Please hurry." The line went dead. Otis dressed with mechanical efficiency jeans, thermal shirt, boots. His hands remained steady even as his mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. The Glock in his bedside drawer caught his eye. After a moment's hesitation, he left it. Not yet. Outside, his breath clouded in the frozen air as he climbed into his truck. The engine turned over with a growl, and he pulled out onto empty streets. Kalispell slept around him, unaware that someone's world was shattering. The drive to the hospital burned itself into his memory. Empty intersections, yellow lights reflecting off patches of ice. The radio playing soft country music he didn't hear. His knuckles white on the steering wheel as he fought to maintain control. Kalispell Regional materialized out of the darkness, its windows glowing like tired eyes. The emergency room entrance blazed with fluorescent intensity, the automatic doors parting as he approached. A nurse looked up from the desk, recognition flickering across her face. "Mr. Mercer? Follow me, please." She led him through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, each step echoing against sterile tiles. The antiseptic smell burned his nostrils, dragging him back to field hospitals in Afghanistan. The metallic undertone that meant blood wasn't far away. They stopped outside a room where 2 police officers stood guard. Their presence made his pulse quicken, combat instincts rising to the surface. One officer's hand drifted toward his weapon as Otis approached, reading the tension in his frame. "Your son is stable," the nurse said softly, touching his arm. "But you should prepare yourself." Nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. Rylan lay small and broken in the hospital bed, his face a canvas of purple bruises. For lines snaked from his arms, monitoring equipment crowding around him like mechanical vultures. His right arm was encased in a white cast, and bandages wrapped his torso. The boy's chest rose and fell with shallow breaths that seemed to cause him pain. "Dad!" Rylan's voice was barely a whisper. Otis moved to his son's side, careful not to disturb the medical equipment. Every step felt like walking through quicksand. "I'm here, buddy. I'm right here." Tears welled in Rylan's eyes, cutting tracks through the bruises. "I'm sorry. I try to be brave. Like you taught me. You have nothing to be sorry for." Otis gently touched his son's uninjured hand, noting the scrapes across the knuckles. His boy had fought back, pride mixed with rage in his chest. "Can you tell me what happened?" Rylan's lower lip trembled. Fear clouded his eyes, not of the pain, but of speaking the truth. "Mom and her boyfriend." He struggled with each word, as if they caused physical pain. "They said if you don't give her the house, they'll keep hurting me." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Otis felt something shift inside him. a door opening to a dark place he'd kept locked since leaving the Rangers. The place where violence lived, where mercy died. He kept his voice steady, protecting his son from the rage building in his chest. "You're safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you again." The promise carried the weight of absolute truth. A doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Middle-aged, with kind eyes that had seen too much. "Mr. Mercer? I'm Dr. Reeves. We need to discuss your son's injuries." The list was methodical, clinical. 3 broken ribs on the left side. Fractured right arm, defensive wounds. Extensive bruising across the torso and face. Possible internal bleeding, they were monitoring. Defensive wounds on the hands and arms. Each injury told a story of deliberate cruelty, of calculated abuse designed to cause maximum pain without fatal damage. The pattern of injuries, Dr. Reeves said carefully, suggests multiple impacts with both fists and what appears to be a belt or similar object. This wasn't a single incident of rage. It was systematic. Otis absorbed every detail, building a mental catalog of each wound, each mark. Evidence. Ammunition. How long? The bruising shows different stages of healing. I'd estimate the abuse has been occurring over several weeks, escalating in severity. Several weeks. The words hit Otis like physical blows. His son had been suffering, and he hadn't known. Hadn't protected him. "The police will want to take your statement," Dr. Reeves added, glancing at the officers outside. "But your son needs rest first. We've given him medication for the pain, and he should sleep soon." Otis nodded, his mind already mapping out what needed to be done. He stayed until Ryland's eyes fluttered closed, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Only then did he step into the hallway to speak with the officers. Detective Farrow introduced himself with a handshake that was too firm, too eager. His partner hung back, taking notes without speaking. Something about Farrow set off warning bells in Otis's mind. The smile that didn't reach his eyes, the carefully cultivated appearance of concern. "We'll need a formal statement," Farrow said, producing a small notebook. "But unofficially, what's your relationship with Jean Mercer Holloway?" "Ex-wife," Otis replied, keeping his voice neutral. "We've been divorced for 2 years. She remarried 6 months ago. And her new husband, boyfriend, Troy Maddox, ex-con with a record of assault and battery. 3 convictions in the past decade." Farrow's eyebrows rose slightly. "You've done your homework." "I protect what's mine, detective." The words carried a weight Farrow couldn't miss. "Well, we'll handle this by the book." Farrow's smile remained fixed in place. "Let's do our jobs. No vigilante justice, understand? We wouldn't want to compromise the investigation." Otis met his gaze without blinking. "Of course not." He waited until the police left before pulling out his phone. The number he dialed hadn't changed in 15 years, since their last deployment together. "Noah? It's Otis." He took a deep breath, steel entering his voice. "They hurt my boy, Noah." The line went quiet for several heartbeats. When Noah Vance spoke, his voice was cold with purpose. "When do we start?" "Now. Meet me at Jean's house in 30 minutes." Otis ended the call and looked back through the hospital room window. Ryland slept, his face twisted in pain, even through the medication. The sight burned itself into Otis's memory, fuel for what was to come. His phone buzzed with a text from Noah. "Like Damascus?" Otis typed back a single word. "Worse." He touched the glass, separating him from his son, making another silent promise. Jean thought she knew him, thought she could control him through Ryland. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The man she'd married, the one who played by society's rules, that man was gone, that in his place stood someone else. Someone she'd created with her own cruelty. Walking out of the hospital, Otis felt the change settling over him like armor. The civilian facade falling away, revealing the warrior beneath. Jean wanted to play games with pain and fear? Fine, he'd show her what real monsters looked like. The drive to Jean's suburban home gave Otis time to plan. Streetlights cast pools of yellow light on empty sidewalks as he navigated through the affluent neighborhood. Here, money bought the illusion of safety-perfect lawns and white picket fences hiding their own dark secrets. Jean's house stood apart, newer and more expensive than its neighbors. Bought with money she'd taken from him in the divorce, Noah's black pickup was already parked a block away, its dark shape blending with the shadows. He emerged as Otis approached, moving with the same deadly grace he'd had in the Rangers. Even in civilian clothes, Noah carried himself like a predator, alert, dangerous, ready. They clasped hands briefly, no words needed between them. 15 years of combat missions had forged a bond deeper than blood. "You sure about this?" Noah asked finally, his breath misting in the cold air. "She crossed the line." Otis's voice was flat. "She hurt my son. I got Overwatch." Noah checked his phone, showing a tactical map of the area. 2 escape routes marked. No police scanners active in the zone. She won't call them. Otis adjusted his jacket. She likes to handle things personally. The porch light clicked on before Otis could knock. Jean opened the door, wearing an expression of practiced concern, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the hour. She wore expensive silk pajamas under a designer robe, always performing, always conscious of appearances. The sight of her made his stomach turn. "Otis." Her voice dripped false sweetness. "What brings you here so late?" "Cut the act, Jean. You know why I'm here." She stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. The house was immaculate, everything arranged with obsessive precision. Family photos lined the walls, pictures of her and Rylan, carefully staged to show the perfect mother-son relationship. The kind of lies Jean specialized in crafting. "Would you like some coffee?" she asked, moving toward the kitchen. "We should discuss this civilly. Like adults." "Discuss what?" "How you let your psychopath boyfriend beat my son." Otis remained standing, watching her movements. "Or how you watched it happen." Jean's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the darkness beneath. Her eyes went cold, reptilian. "Accidents happen, Otis. Children fall. They get hurt. But you could prevent future accidents. Is that what this is? Extortion. Such an ugly word." She opened a cabinet, taking out an expensive coffee mug. Her hands were steady, practiced. "I prefer to think of it as negotiation. We both want what's best for Rylan, don't we?" "Best for Rylan." The rage inside him burned white-hot, but Otis kept his voice steady. "He's in a hospital with broken bones. And whose fault is that, really?" Jean turned to face him, leaning against the granite countertop. Her smile was razor-sharp. "You could end this, Otis. Sign over the house, and maybe Rylan won't have to suffer anymore. Unless, of course, you're willing to gamble with his life. You think you know me." Otis stepped closer, watching her confidence waver. "You think because I've played by the rules, followed the court orders, that means I'm weak. Aren't you?" She tilted her head, studying him. The dutiful ex-husband, so careful to keep the peace. So afraid of losing custody that you'll swallow any insult, any provocation. "You never understood what that control cost me." His voice dropped lower, dangerous. "What I'm capable of when someone threatens my family." "Are you threatening me, Otis?" Jean's hand drifted toward a kitchen drawer. "In my own home?" "No, Jean. I'm educating you." He smiled then, and something in his expression made her step back. "You thought hurting Rylan would break me, make me give you what you want. But you miscalculated." "Did I?" She moved sideways, trying to maintain distance between them. "Look at you, coming here in the middle of the night, desperate to protect your precious boy. Sounds broken to me." "No. You just reminded me of who I really am, what I was before I met you." Otis's eyes never left her face. "The man who played house with you, who tried to be civilized, he's gone. You killed him when you hurt our son. Such drama." But her voice wavered slightly. "Troy won't like you threatening me. Troy should worry about himself." Otis turned to leave, then paused. "Tell him to watch his back. And Jean, remember what happened to the last person who threatened my family. You can't touch me." Her composure cracked, showing fear beneath. "I'll call the police." "No, you won't. Because deep down you know what's coming." He met her eyes one last time. "You created this situation, Jean. Remember that when it all burns down." He left her standing in her perfect kitchen, her hands gripping the counter so hard her knuckles turned white. Outside, Noah fell in a step beside him. "She's scared," Noah observed. "Under all that ice, she's terrified." "Good." Otis checked his phone. No messages from the hospital. It's about time she understood fear. They walked in silence, frost crunching under their boots. The night felt different now, charged with purpose. "She'll warn Troy," Noah said as they reached their vehicles. "Let her. It won't matter." Noah nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Your place?" "Yeah. Time to wake up some old ghosts." They drove separately, taking different routes in case Jean had someone watching. Otis's house was an older ranch-style home set back from the road, surrounded by trees. Private, defensible. He'd chosen it for those qualities after the divorce. Inside, Otis led Noah to the basement. The gun safe looked ordinary enough, but behind it lay another door, hidden in the wall. The cash hadn't been touched in years, but everything remained exactly as they'd left it. Weapons gleamed in the dim light: rifles, pistols, tactical gear. A small arsenal, carefully maintained and totally untraceable. Otis ran his fingers over his old Ranger handbook, memories flooding back. Missions in places that didn't officially exist, doing things that governments denied. "You kept all this?" Noah asked, checking the action on a suppressed pistol. "Some habits die hard." Otis began laying out equipment with practiced efficiency. "Jean thinks she knows me, knows what I'll do. She's counting on me being civilized, playing by the rules." Her mistake. Noah's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "My contact at the hospital says Jean tried to visit Rylan. Security stopped her. She won't stop pushing." Otis loaded a magazine, the sound precise and familiar. "So we push back harder, until she understands exactly what kind of devil she created." Noah nodded, falling easily into their old rhythm. "Just like Damascus? Worse than Damascus." Otis checked another weapon. This time it's personal. They worked through the night, planning, preparing. Each piece of equipment checked and rechecked. Maps spread out, escape routes marked, contingencies planned. This wasn't rage driving them, it was cold, methodical purpose. When dawn broke over the Montana mountains, Otis stood at his kitchen window, watching the light paint the snow blood red. His phone chimed a text from the hospital. Rylan was awake, asking for him. "I need to see my son," he told Noah. "Then we start." Noah nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I'll make some calls, set things in motion. By tonight, we'll know every move Troy makes, every place he goes." "Good." Otis grabbed his keys. "Because this ends one way, with them understanding exactly what happens when you hurt my family." He left Noah working, driving back to the hospital as the town began to wake. The morning felt cleaner somehow, sharper. Purpose had replaced panic, cold determination pushing aside fear. Jean had made a fatal mistake, thinking she could control him through Rylan. Instead, she'd awakened something she couldn't possibly understand. Something that had been sleeping since he'd left the service, since he'd tried to be the man she wanted. That man was dead now. In his place stood someone else, someone she'd created with her own cruelty. By the time this was over, she'd understand exactly what that meant. The basement air grew thick with purpose as Otis and Noah transformed the space into a command center. Maps covered one wall, satellite images of Kalispell, street layouts, terrain surveys. Each marked with precision, showing escape routes, choke points, surveillance positions. This wasn't revenge they were planning. This was war. "Your contact's still active at the county records office?" Otis asked, marking another point on the map. Noah nodded, checking his encrypted phone. She sent Troy's complete file. 3 assault convictions, 2 domestic violence charges dropped when witnesses disappeared. He passed the phone to Otis. "Look at the pattern." The mugshots told a story. Troy aging through the system, each photo showing a man who grew more confident in his violence. The latest charge was from 8 months ago, right around when he'd started dating Jean. "He likes to hurt women," Otis said, studying the reports. "Children, too. Makes him feel powerful. Until someone stronger comes along." Noah's voice carried the weight of experience. "Remember Kandahar? That warlord who specialized in trafficking kids?" Otis remembered. Some missions weren't officially sanctioned, but they were necessary. That particular target had disappeared without a trace. Sometimes justice needed to operate in the shadows. Jean knew what he was when she brought him into Rylan's life. Otis moved to the weapons cache, selecting tools with deliberate care. She knew his history. She's using him. Noah pulled up more data on his laptop. Troy's just muscle. Jean's the real threat. Always has been. Otis checked the action on a suppressed Glock, muscle memory taking over. I saw it too late the first time. Won't make that mistake again. They worked in comfortable silence, falling into rhythms established through years of combat operations. Noah handled electronic surveillance, setting up monitoring systems that would track their targets' movements. Otis focused on tactical planning, mapping out scenarios and responses. Your med contact sent Ryland's full report, Noah said after a while, his voice tight with anger. X-rays show old fractures, partially healed. This wasn't the first time. Otis's hands stilled on the weapon he was cleaning. How long? Based on bone healing rates? At least 2 months. They've been hurting him and covering it up. Noah turned the laptop so Otis could see. Look at the bruise patterns. Professional work, designed to cause pain without leaving obvious marks. The rage that had been simmering in Otis's chest crystallized into something colder, more focused. Troy's done this before. It's in his file, beating kids where it doesn't show. Jean knew that when she chose him. She's playing a longer game. Noah pulled up property records. That house you bought together? Its value tripled after the tech company announced their new campus nearby. She wants it back, using Ryland as leverage. Otis moved to the planning table, spreading out surveillance photos. She always did know how to hurt people where they're weakest. Noah watched his friend work, recognizing the transition happening. The civilian facade falling away, revealing the operator underneath. They'd seen it before, in men pushed too far. Damascus Protocol? Noah asked quietly. Otis nodded. With modifications. This isn't about a quick kill. It's about dismantling their world piece by piece. The Damascus Protocol had been their unit's specialty. Systematic destruction of enemy infrastructure, physical and psychological. Breaking an opponent's will to fight before landing the final blow. Troy first. Otis continued, marking locations on the map. He runs illegal fights out of that bar on the east side. Takes bets, deals drugs on the side. It's his power base. Take that away. He's just another thug. Noah pulled up blueprints of the bar. But he's got connections. Local muscle, corrupt cops, including Detective Farrow. Otis tapped the officer's photo. My source at the station says he's on Troy's payroll. Takes money to look the other way. They spent the next hour building target packages, detail files on everyone in Troy and Jean's orbit. Corrupt officials, criminal associates, anyone who helped them hurt Ryland. Each one a pressure point waiting to be exploited. Otis's phone buzzed another update from the hospital. He read the message, his expression hardening. Jean tried visiting again. Brought a court order this time, claiming parental rights. He showed Noah the text. Hospital security held firm, but she's escalating. She won't stop pushing. Noah checked his weapon. You know that. No. Otis moved to the gun safe, entering a complex combination. That's why we end this now. The safe opened to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside lay specialized equipment from their final mission items that officially didn't exist. Tools designed for the kind of work governments denied. These aren't registered, Noah observed, examining a customized rifle. Neither are we after tonight. Otis began assembling his kit with practiced efficiency. Once we start, there's no going back. You sure about this? Noah's answer was to check his own weapon. They hurt your boy. That makes it personal for both of us. The brotherhood forged in combat didn't end with discharge papers. Some bonds went deeper than blood or law. They spent the next hour going over contingencies. Escape routes, safe houses, emergency protocols. Everything planned with military precision. This wasn't about revenge. Revenge was emotional, messy. This was about surgical removal of a threat. Troy's got fight night tonight, Noah said, checking surveillance feeds on his laptop. Runs till midnight. He always stays late to count money. Good. Otis studied the bar's layout again. We start with his power base. Hit his income, his reputation. Make him feel vulnerable. Then we isolate him from his protection. Noah marked police patrol routes on the map. Farrow's working tonight. We'll need to work around his schedule. Let him work. Otis's smile was cold. By the time he responds, there won't be anything left to protect. They synchronized watches, checking equipment one final time. Each piece chosen with purpose, nothing traceable. The kind of tools that would leave Troy's empire in ashes without leading back to them. One last thing. Otis moved to a locked cabinet, removing a small case. Inside, lay syringes filled with clear liquid. Insurance. In case things get complicated. Noah recognized the contents as something else from their last mission. The kind of insurance that left no traces in an autopsy. This isn't just about stopping them, Noah realized. You're going to destroy them completely. They hurt my son. Otis's voice was ice. Everything they built, everything they care about, it all burns. Until they understand exactly what they created when they crossed that line. The basement felt different now, charged with lethal purpose. This wasn't the angry father from the hospital or the controlled ex-husband from Jean's house. This was something else, something forged in combat zones and sharpened by betrayal. Otis checked his phone one last time, a picture of Ryland from happier days. The boy's smile, unmarked by fear or pain, reminded him why this was necessary. Time to move, he said, securing his equipment. Like old times, Noah replied, falling into formation. They climbed the basement stairs in silence, each step taking them further from the civilian world and deeper into familiar darkness. Tonight, Troy would learn what real violence looked like. And it was only the beginning. Jean thought she could control the situation through fear and pain. She was about to learn that some men couldn't be controlled. They could only be unleashed. The Montana night waited outside, cold and unforgiving. Perfect conditions for hunting monsters. Perfect conditions for becoming one. The broken bottle bar squatted at the edge of Kalispell's industrial district like a wounded animal. Paint peeled from its walls, and neon beer signs flickered in grimy windows. But the parking lot was full. Troy Maddox's fight nights drew crowds hungry for blood. Otis and Noah watched from their surveillance position in a vacant office building across the street. Through high-powered optics, they could see everything. The steady stream of people entering, the muscle at the door checking weapons, the money changing hands. For guards outside, Noah reported, marking positions on his tablet. 2 more inside by the cage. Troy's holding court at his usual table. Otis adjusted his scope, focusing on Troy. The man sprawled in his chair like a cut-rate king, accepting tribute from fighters and gamblers. His knuckles were wrapped. He'd already participated in tonight's violence. He's getting sloppy, Otis observed. No lookouts on the roof. No counter-surveillance. Success breeds overconfidence. No pulled-up thermal imaging. 37 people inside, mostly clustered around the cage. The radio crackled. Target's drinking heavy tonight, their inside man reported. Already put 3 guys in the hospital. He's riding high. Perfect. Otis checked his watch. Time to remind him what real violence looks like. They moved like ghosts through the industrial zone, years of combat experience guiding every step. The plan was simple but effective: destroy Troy's power base without leaving evidence. Remember, Otis said as they approached their first target, "We're invisible tonight. No witnesses, no traces." Troy's prized possession sat in its usual spot, a custom Ford F-350, lifted and armored. The vehicle represented everything about him. Flashy, aggressive, bought with blood money. Inside, sleeping peacefully, lay his pit bull, a champion fighter used to intimidate rivals. Noah disabled the truck's alarm with practiced ease. Security systems, military grade. Jean's money at work. She always did, like upgrading her toys. Otis moved to the driver's side, tools appearing in his hands. How long? For minutes, until the next guard patrol. They worked in silence, movements precise. When they finished, nothing appeared disturbed. But the truck's brake lines had hairline cuts. The steering column was compromised, and the fuel line was rigged to fail at high speeds. "Now for the message," Otis said softly. The pit bull never woke as the needle found its mark. A peaceful death, more mercy than its owner deserved. Otis positioned the animal carefully in the passenger seat, then carved 5 words into the leather dashboard. "I see you. Remember Ryland." Guards approaching. Noah warned, They melted into the shadows as the guard passed, music from the bar masking any sound. Inside, they could hear the crowd roaring as another fight reached its brutal conclusion. Phase 2. Otis commanded. Their inside man had done his work well. As they watched, the bar's power cut out, plunging everything into darkness. Confusion erupted inside, shouts, crashes, the sound of breaking glass. Phones are being scrambled, Noah confirmed, monitoring his equipment. No calls getting out. The backup generator kicked in, but the damage was done. In the chaos, no one noticed the gas lines being carefully compromised, the water main being tampered with, the subtle sabotage that would reveal itself in the coming days. Through their comms, they heard Troy's reaction to finding his dog. "Who did this?" His voice was slurred with alcohol and rage. "Find them. I want them found now." "Sir," one of his men replied, "there's no signs of forced entry. No cameras caught anything." "I don't care. Get Pharaoh down here. Tell him to earn his money." Otis and Noah exchanged looks. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "Your boy's scared," Noah observed as they moved to their next position. "Good." Otis checked his phone, a message from their hospital contact, showing Jean trying to visit Rylan again. But this is just the beginning. They spent the next hour documenting everything. Troy's illegal gambling operation, the drug deals happening in back rooms, the bribes being passed to corrupt officials. Every piece of evidence carefully collected and encrypted. "Insurance?" Noah asked. "Ammunition," Otis corrected, "for when we need to turn his allies against him." Detective Pharaoh arrived as they watched, his patrol car screaming into the parking lot. The corrupt cop moved with angry purpose, already on his phone. "He's calling Jean," Noah reported, monitoring the intercepted signal. They listened as Pharaoh's voice crackled through their earpieces. "We've got a problem. Someone's targeting Troy." Jean's reply was ice cold. "Handle it. That's what we pay you for." "This feels professional. Military maybe. You sure Otis doesn't have?" "Otis doesn't have the spine for this." Jean cut him off. "Find whoever did it. Make them regret it." Otis smiled in the darkness. Same old Jean, always underestimating him, always thinking she knew best. Her mistake. They watched Pharaoh coordinate with Troy's men, setting up searches that would find nothing. The night was ending, but their work was just beginning. "Time to move," Otis said as the bar began emptying. "Phase 3 starts tomorrow." Troy's rattled. No one noted as they retrieved their gear. "He'll make mistakes. Count on it." Otis's voice was cold. "Fear does that to men like him. Makes them stupid." They drove separately back to their safe house, maintaining communication through encrypted channels. The night's work had been precise, professional, just like their military days. But this was personal in a way their missions had never been. Otis's phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. Rylan was having nightmares again, calling out in his sleep. The rage that drove him burned colder, sharper. Troy thought he knew violence because he could beat defenseless children. Jean thought she understood power because she could manipulate and hurt. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Real violence wasn't about brute force. Real power wasn't about causing pain. It was about precision. Control. The systematic dismantling of everything your enemy held dear. And Otis was just getting started. "Update from my contact at the station," Noah reported as they regrouped. "Troy's pulling in favors, trying to find us. He's offering money for information. Let him spend it." Otis began planning the next phase. "Every resource he wastes is one more weakness we can exploit." He's calling in muscle from Missoula. Professional tough guys. "Good." Otis's smile was predatory. More witnesses for what's coming. They spent the rest of the night monitoring their surveillance feeds, watching Troy's world begin to crack. The fear was spreading through his organization, whispers about ghosts in the night, about someone methodically hunting them. "Boss," one of Troy's lieutenants said, his voice caught on their directional microphones. "Maybe we should back off. Just give Mercer what he wants." The sound of flesh hitting flesh echoed through their earpieces. "We don't back off," Troy snarled. "We hit back harder. Find his kid. Send him home in pieces." Otis's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Record that," he told Noah. "Add it to the evidence file." Already done. Noah's fingers moved across his keyboard. Want me to send it to Pharaoh? Not yet. Let them think they're still in control. Dawn was approaching, painting the Montana sky in shades of blood and gold. They'd struck the first blow, planted the first seeds of fear. Now it was time to water them with precision and pain. Get some rest, Otis told Noah. Tomorrow we escalate. But sleep wouldn't come easy. Not with Ryland's bruised face haunting him. Not with the knowledge that Jean and Troy were still breathing free air. They thought they knew what was coming. Thought they could prepare for it. They were wrong. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. The kind that couldn't be found in courtrooms or prison cells. The kind that came in the night, wearing a father's face and carrying a warrior's weapons. Troy had learned the first lesson about fear tonight. Tomorrow, he'd learn about pain. And after that, Jean would learn what happened when you created a monster you couldn't control. Morning brought no peace to Kalispell Regional Hospital. Otis sat beside Ryland's bed, watching his son struggle through another nightmare. The boy's face twisted in fear, his good hand clutching the sheets. Dad! Ryland's eyes snapped open, wild with panic. Are you really here? I'm here, buddy. Otis leaned forward, keeping his voice steady. You're safe. Mom was here. In my dream. Ryland's voice shook. She was smiling, but her eyes were wrong. A nurse appeared in the doorway, holding a package. Mr. Mercer? This came for Ryland. Otis intercepted the delivery before it reached his son. No return address, but he recognized Jean's elegant handwriting. Inside lay a child's drawing pad and colored pencils. What is it? Ryland asked. Nothing important. Otis tucked the package away, but not before seeing what Jean had drawn disturbing sketches of Ryland hurt, bleeding, broken. Each one signed Love, Mommy, in flowing script. His phone buzzed. Noah's message was brief. She's escalating. We need to talk. I'll be right back, Otis told his son. Need to speak with the doctors. In the hallway, he found Noah waiting by the coffee machine. His friend's expression was grim. She's been busy, Noah said, showing him surveillance photos. 3 more packages sent to different hospital departments, all addressed to Ryland. Contents, same sick artwork, plus something new. Noah pulled out his phone. She's sending messages to the nurses. Playing concerned mother, claiming you're the abusive one. Otis's jaw tightened. She's trying to control the narrative. It gets worse. Noah's voice dropped lower. My contact at the house says she broken while you were here. Left something in Ryland's room. They drove to Otis's house in tense silence. Everything looked normal from outside, but they both knew better than to trust appearances. The security system showed no breaches. Every lock was intact. But Jean had always been good at getting what she wanted. Ryland's room looked exactly as they'd left it, except for one detail. On the bed lay his favorite stuffed animal, a brown bear he'd had since birth. Now it was mutilated, stuffing spilling from precise cuts. A note pinned to its chest read, "Nowhere is safe." Professional work? Noah observed, examining the cuts. Surgical precision. She's sending a message. Otis picked up the bear, remembering how Ryland used to sleep with it every night, showing she can get to him anywhere. There's more. Noah pointed to the walls. Hidden behind posters, Jean had carved messages into the drywall. Mommy loves you, and you belong to me, repeated in neat rows. Otis's phone rang Detective Farrow's number. Mr. Mercer. Farrow's voice oozed false concern. We found some concerning evidence about Ryland's injuries. I need you to come to the station. What evidence? Let's discuss it in person. Unless you have something to hide, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Otis ended the call, turning to Noah. They're making their move. It's a trap, Noah warned. Jean's trying to shift blame, get you arrested. I know. Otis smiled coldly. But she's not the only one who's been gathering evidence. At the police station, Farrow waited in an interview room, a thick file on the table before him. 2 other officers stood guard, trying to look intimidating. Thanks for coming in. Farrow gestured to a chair. We have some questions about your relationship with Ryland. Do you? Otis sat calmly. Or did Jean pay you to ask them? Farrow's smile slipped slightly. We have witnesses placing you at the scene when Ryland was injured. Really? The same witnesses who saw Troy beating him? The ones you paid to stay quiet? Careful, Mr. Mercer. Farrow leaned forward. Accusations against a police officer are serious. So is taking bribes to cover up child abuse. Otis placed a USB drive on the table. Want to see your account numbers? The payments from Troy? The text messages coordinating cover-ups. The color drained from Farrow's face. Where did you get that? I protect my son, detective. Something you forgot when you took their money. You're bluffing. Am I? Otis stood slowly. Check your private accounts. The ones in the Caymans. I wonder how your superiors would react to those transfers. Farrow's hand moved toward his weapon. Are you threatening me? No, I'm educating you. Otis turned to leave. Ask Jean about Damascus. Ask her what happened to the last corrupt cop who tried to hurt my family. Outside, Noah was waiting in their surveillance vehicle. How'd it go? She's getting desperate. Otis checked his phone, more messages from the hospital about Jean's psychological warfare. Using Farrow to try to get custody. Want me to release the evidence? Not yet. Let her think she's winning. They drove past the hospital, watching Jean's black Mercedes pull into the parking lot. She stepped out wearing expensive clothes, playing the part of concerned mother perfectly. Security won't let her in, Noah assured him. She's not trying to get in. Otis watched her perform for witnesses, crying crocodile tears for smartphones recording her distress. She's building a case. Poor mother denied access to her injured son. Smart play. She always was good at manipulation. Otis's voice hardened, but she made a mistake going after Rylan this way. Back at their safe house, they monitored the day's developments. Jean's psychological attacks continued, more drawings sent to Rylan, more staged scenes of maternal concern, more whispered accusations about Otis to hospital staff. She's trying to break him, Noah observed, watching surveillance feeds. Death by 1,000 cuts. I know. Otis cleaned his weapons with mechanical precision. That's why we moved tonight. Troy's Fight Club. No, something more personal. Otis showed him surveillance photos of Troy's private gym. He works out alone after midnight. No witnesses. You're going to make it hurt. I'm going to make it educational. Otis checked his tactical gear. He needs to understand consequences. As night fell, they prepared for the next phase. Jean's psychological warfare had escalated the timeline, but that only made things clearer. No more subtle messages. No more warnings. Otis's phone chimed with another hospital update. More of Jean's artwork had arrived, pictures of Rylan broken and bleeding, each one more detailed than the last. She won't stop, Noah said quietly. No. Otis loaded his weapons with cold precision. That's why we end this tonight. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, leaving Jean to play her psychological games. She thought she was in control, thought she could break them through fear and pain. She was about to learn the difference between inflicting pain and understanding it, between causing fear and mastering it. Tonight, Troy would learn what real violence felt like. And after that, Jean would learn what happened when you pushed a warrior too far. When you hurt the one thing he'd die to protect. She wanted to play games with pain? Fine. Class was in session. Midnight painted Kalispell's hiking trails in shades of silver and black. A half-moon hung above the mountains, providing just enough light for hunting. Otis and Noah moved through the forest with practiced silence, approaching Troy's private training spot. Targets alone, Noah reported through their comm link. 2 miles into his usual route. They'd studied Troy's habits meticulously. Every night after the fights, he'd run these trails, a ritual he thought made him tough. Tonight would teach him different lessons about toughness. Remember, Otis's voice was cold in the darkness. This isn't quick. This is education. They split up, taking parallel paths through the woods. Troy's running footsteps echoed ahead, heavy and confident. The sound of a man who'd never faced real predators. Otis clicked his radio, twice the signal. Noah's voice crackled back. In position. Troy rounded the bend, breath steaming in the cold air. He wore expensive running gear and carried himself with the arrogance of someone used to being feared. That would change. The first warning came as a whisper through the trees. You hurt my son. Troy spun, fists raised. Who's there? You beat a child. Otis's voice seemed to come from everywhere. Made yourself feel strong. Mercer. Troy pulled out a pistol, sweeping it in wild arcs. That you tough guy? Finally grew some spine. Put the gun down, Troy. It won't help you. Yeah. Troy fired 3 shots into the darkness. Come out and face me like a man. The gun disappeared from his hand, stripped away so fast he barely felt it. Otis materialized from his shadows, holding Troy's weapon. Like a man, Otis's voice was conversational. You mean like how you faced my 10-year-old son? Troy swung a wild punch. Otis caught his fist and twisted, bringing the larger man to his knees with mechanical precision. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Otis applied more pressure, feeling tendon strain. We're going to have a conversation about consequences. I'll kill you. Troy tried to rise, but a boot to his spine put him back down. You think you scare me? No. Otis released him, stepping back. Not yet, but I will. Troy scrambled up, spitting blood and rage. Jean was right about you. Weak, pathetic, playing by the rules while real men take what they want. Real men. Another blow put Troy back on his knees. Real men don't hurt children. Your kid. Troy laughed through bloody teeth. Should have heard him scream. Should have seen him beg. The words hung in the frozen air. Otis's expression didn't change, but the temperature seemed to drop. Thank you, he said softly. For what? For removing all doubt. Otis nodded to Noah, who emerged from the tree line. For making this easy. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a dismantling. Every blow calculated. Every strike meant to cause maximum pain without unconsciousness. Otis moved with surgical precision, breaking Troy down piece by piece. The ribs first, Otis explained calmly, demonstrating. Just like you did to Rylan. Feel that? That's what you did to my son. Troy tried to block, to counter, but his street fighting was useless against military precision. Each attempt to defend himself was turned into another lesson in pain. The arm next. Otis trapped Troy's limb, applying careful pressure. Exact same spot you broke his. Listen for the snap. Please. Troy gasped as the bone gave way. I'm sorry. No. Otis's voice remained steady. You're not sorry you hurt him. You're sorry you're facing consequences. Noah watched from the perimeter, keeping guard while documenting everything. Evidence, he knew. Ammunition for what was coming. Jean will kill you for this. Troy spat between broken teeth. Jean. Otis knelt beside him. Jean's not coming. Just like she didn't stop you from hurting Rylan. She just watched, didn't she? Encouraged it. Troy's eyes widened. How did you? Because I know her. Know how she thinks. Otis checked his watch. She's probably calling you right now, wondering why you're late. As if on cue, Troy's phone rang in his jacket. Otis retrieved it, putting it on speaker. Troy. Jean's voice was impatient. Where are you? We need to discuss the next phase. He's learning. Otis answered. About actions and consequences. The line went silent for 3 heartbeats. Otis. Hello, Jean. Troy can't talk right now. He's understanding what real pain feels like. If you hurt him like you hurt our son. Otis's voice carried Arctic chill. Too late. But don't worry. He's still breathing. For now, I'll call the police. No, you won't. Because then you'd have to explain the videos. The text messages. All that evidence of you orchestrating Rylan's abuse. Another silence. Then, what do you want? I want you to understand what you created. Every time you hurt Rylan, every time you let this animal touch our son, you built this moment. Remember that. Otis ended the call, turning back to Troy. She won't help you. That's not what she does. She watches others suffer and smiles. Just kill me. Troy wheezed through broken ribs. Kill you. Otis smiled. No, you don't get to die fast. The next hour was a masterclass in control violence. Every technique Troy had used on Rylan was repeated back to him with professional expertise. By the end, he hung suspended from a tree alive, but wishing he wasn't. The police will find you soon, Otis told him. They'll assume suicide, guilt over what you did. And you'll let them think that, won't you? Troy managed a weak nod. Because if you don't, if you try to tell them what really happened, the videos of you hurting my son go public. Your entire organization gets exposed. Everything burns. What? Troy's voice was barely a whisper. Why not just kill me? Because death is too quick. Otis checked his restraints one final time. You need to live with this. Remember it every time you look in a mirror. Every time you think about hurting someone weaker. They left Troy hanging there, broken but breathing. A message to others who might follow his path. But more importantly, a message to Jean that I in the car. Noah reviewed the footage. She'll escalate after this. Go for Ryland directly. I know. Otis cleaned blood from his knuckles with mechanical precision. That's what I'm counting on. His phone buzzed another message from the hospital. Jean was there again, but something was different. The security feeds showed her smiling as she left. She's planning something, Noah observed. Good. Otis started the engine. Let her plan. Let her think she's in control. They drove through the night, monitoring police channels as Troy was discovered. Just as predicted, the scene was ruled an attempted suicide. No questions asked. No investigation needed. But Jean's reaction was more concerning. No anger. No threats. Just that cold smile as she left the hospital. She's going to take him, Noah said finally. Try to hurt you through Ryland one last time. Yes. Otis's expression hardened. And when she does, she'll learn what happens when you push someone too far. When you create something you can't control. The Montana night stretched ahead of them, cold and unforgiving. Somewhere in that darkness, Jean was making plans, thinking she still held the power. She was about to learn differently. About the monster she'd created with her own cruelty. The devil she'd unleashed with her own hands. The hospital corridor echoed with urgent footsteps as Otis ran toward Ryland's room. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. The power had failed 10 minutes ago, plunging entire floors into darkness. Security cameras are down. Noah's voice crackled through his earpiece. Backup generators been sabotaged. Otis rounded the corner at full sprint. The guard who should have been at Ryland's door was sprawled unconscious on the floor, a needle mark visible on his neck. The room was empty. The bed sheets were twisted, showing signs of struggle. On the pillow lay a note written in Jean's elegant hand, smeared with Ryland's blood. Let's finish this. Just you and me. Noah. Otis's voice was arctic cold. Tell me you have eyes on them. Working on it. She disabled the hospital security system, but I've got traffic cams. Noah's fingers flew across keyboards at their command center. Black Mercedes heading north on Highway 93. 2 heat signatures inside. Otis knelt by the fallen guard, checking his pulse. Still alive? Jean wanted witnesses. How long ago? For minutes. She's good timed the power failure with shift change. Used the chaos for cover. She's not good. Otis stood, already moving. She's desperate. Patch me through to Detective Farrow. The line clicked after 2 rings. Mercer? Little busy with Troy's suicide. Jean took Ryland. Otis's voice cut like a blade. 4 minutes ago. She's heading north on 93. Christ. Farrow's corrupt bravado cracked. Look about before. Save it. You want redemption? Get units on the highway. But understand this, anyone who helps her disappear with my son dies first. Clear. Clear. Farrow's voice shook slightly. I'll make the calls. Otis reached his truck, engine roaring to life. Noah, give me a route to intercept. She's taking back roads now, heading toward the old cabin property. Noah's voice carried grim understanding. The one you bought her during the marriage. Of course. Otis pressed the accelerator harder. She's making it personal. The cabin lay deep in Montana's wilderness, accessible only by unmarked roads. They'd spent summers there before the divorce, before Jean showed her true nature. She's got 10 minutes on you, Noah reported. But she's moving cautious, avoiding patrols. Because she wants me to follow. Otis checked his weapons. This is her endgame. Surveillance shows she's been planning this. Stocked the cabin last week. Installed security cameras. What else? Thermal imaging shows she reinforced the doors. Added bars to the windows. Noah paused. She's got Ryland's medication there. The implications were clear. Jean wasn't just running. She was setting a stage for her final performance. Otis's phone rang. Jean's number. Missing something. Her voice carried that familiar, cruel amusement. If you hurt him, you'll what? Kill me? Like you killed Troy. She laughed softly. No, Otis. You're going to listen very carefully. You're going to experience what real pain feels like. A muffled cry in the background, Ryland. Mom, please. The sound cut off in a sharp gasp. Hear that? Jean's voice turned silky. That's just the beginning. Every minute you take to reach us, every second you waste, I'll teach our son about suffering. Show him what his father's weakness costs. This won't end how you think, Jean. No. Her tone sharpened. I think it ends with you watching. Watching while I carve my signature into him. While I show you exactly how weak you really are. You forgot something important. Otis's voice remained steady. You forgot Damascus. The line went quiet for 2 heartbeats. What? Asked Troy about Damascus. About what happens when someone pushes too far. When they hurt the wrong person's family. Troy's dead. But uncertainty crept into her voice. The police found what I wanted them to find. But Troy's not dead, Jean. He's very much alive. Broken, but alive. Learning what happens when you cross certain lines. You're bluffing. Check your phone. I'm sending you proof right now. Noah transmitted the video. Troy in the hospital, wrapped in casts and bandages, whispering his confession to the police. Explaining how guilt over hurting Ryland drove him to attempt suicide. Impossible. Jean's composure cracked. You couldn't. I warned you. Otis guided his truck onto the unmarked road leading to the cabin. I told you what would happen if you hurt my boy. Now you'll learn what that warning meant. I'll kill him. Hysteria edged into her voice. I swear I'll. No, you won't. Because now you're starting to remember. Starting to understand what you created. Otis's voice went softer, more dangerous. I'm coming, Jean. And when I get there, you'll learn about real monsters. He ended the call as the cabin came into view. Light blazed from its windows, creating harsh shadows in the surrounding forest. Thermal shows 3 heat signatures, Noah reported. Jean's in the main room. Ryland's in the back bedroom. One more signature I can't identify. She brought backup. Want me to call in tactical support? No. Otis parked out of sight, checking his equipment. This ends personal. Just her and me. She's unstable. Unpredictable. Good. Otis moved through the trees like a ghost. Fear makes people stupid. Makes them make mistakes. The cabin security cameras were easy to spot amateur work, covering obvious angles. Jean thought like a civilian, focusing on entry points and windows. She'd forgotten how many other ways a trained operator could enter a building. Noah, kill the power. Give me 30 seconds of darkness. The cabin plunged into black as Otis moved. Inside, he heard Jean's frustrated scream, followed by Ryland's muffled cry. You can't stop this, Otis. Jean's voice echoed through the cabin. You're still the same weak man who couldn't keep his family together. Otis didn't respond. Didn't need to. Actions would speak louder than words. In the darkness. Jean was about to learn the difference between causing pain and understanding it. Between inflicting fear and mastering it. She thought she'd created a monster she could control. She was wrong. Montana wilderness stretched dark and infinite around the cabin. Otis moved through the shadows with lethal purpose, every step calculated. Behind him, Noah maintained communication silence, watching thermal feeds for movement. The cabin's windows blazed with harsh light, creating a false island of warmth in the cold night. Jean had chosen this battleground carefully, isolated, defensible, loaded with memories. The perfect stage for her final performance. Movement inside. Noah whispered through the comm. Jean's pacing in the main room. Ryland's heat signature shows elevated heart rate. Otis touched his earpiece. The 3rd signature, stationary by the back door. Arm. She hired muscle. Want me to take them? No. Otis checked his equipment one final time. She needs to understand. Really understand what she created. Through the cabin's windows, they could see Jean moving restlessly. She held something in her hands, a knife, blade catching light as she gestured. You're out there, aren't you? Her voice carried through the walls. Watching, planning. Tell me, Otis, does it hurt? Knowing your son is crying for you. A muffled sound from the back room. Ryland trying to call out through whatever gag she'd used. Shut up. Jean's voice cracked with rage. You don't get to speak unless I say. Otis's radio crackled. Police bands active, Noah reported. Pharaoh's coordinating search teams, but he's sending them east. Buying us time. Good. Otis moved closer, using trees for cover. Security system? Amateur stuff. Cameras on obvious angles, basic motion sensors. She thinks like a civilian. She always did. Otis reached the cabin's blind spot, a section of wall between sensors. Time to remind her what professionals look like. He pulled out his phone, dialing Jean's number. She answered on the first ring, finally ready to beg. Her voice dripped false sweetness. You helped train Ryland's dog, didn't you? Otis kept his voice conversational. Remember what you taught him about tracking prey? What? How to circle. How to cut off escape routes. How to make the target feel safe before striking. If you're trying to scare me. No, Jean. I'm educating you. Teaching you what real hunters look like. A crash from inside Jean's, composure slipping. You can't touch me. I've got. The mercenary by the back door? Ex-military by his stance. Probably expensive. Her breath caught. How did you? I see everything, Jean. Just like I saw what you did to Ryland. Every bruise. Every break. Every time you smiled while Troy hurt him. He needed discipline. Hysteria edged into her voice. You made him weak, just like you. No, you just never understood strength. Otis moved closer, silent despite the frosted ground. Real strength isn't about hurting people. It's about precision. Control. Things are losing right now. Through the window, he could see her turning in circles, knife flashing. Fear had replaced her usual cold calculation. I'll kill him, she screamed into the phone. I swear I'll know. You won't. Otis's voice went softer, more dangerous. Because now you're starting to remember. Starting to understand what happens when you push someone too far. You're nothing. But her hand shook as she gripped the knife. A pathetic man playing soldier. Damascus. The word hung in the frozen air. Remember Damascus, Jean? What happened to the last person who threatened my family? The knife clattered from her fingers. Finally, real fear in her eyes. That's right. Otis watched her spin toward shadows that weren't there. You're remembering now. What I was before you met me. What I can do when someone hurts people I love. You're bluffing. You can't. Check the back door. See how your expensive mercenary's doing. Jean ran to the rear of the cabin. Her scream told him she'd found the unconscious guard, carefully positioned to send a message. That's impossible. Her voice shook through the phone. Nobody could. I warned you. Otis moved to his final position. I told you what would happen if you hurt my boy. Now you get to learn what that warning meant. Inside, Jean fired wild shots through windows, emptying her pistol at shadows. Each bullet sparked off trees, showing her panic. Face me, she screamed into the darkness. Stop hiding and face me. But I am facing you. Otis's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. I'm right here, teaching you about fear, about consequences. Her gun clicked empty. The sound echoed through the cabin like a death knell. You remember now, don't you? Otis continued as she frantically reloaded. What the police found after Damascus. What was left of the people who hurt my team. Stop it. Another wild shot into darkness. Just stop. Can't stop, Jean. Not until you understand. Really understand what kind of devil you created. A small voice cut through the chaos. Ryland, calling from the back room. Dad! Jean spun toward the sound, raising her gun. Fatal mistake. The cabin plunged into darkness as Noah cut the power. In the sudden black, Jean's scream mixed with the sound of breaking glass. The hunt was over. Time for the reckoning to begin. Darkness transformed the cabin into a maze of shadows. Jean fired blindly into the black, each muzzle flash temporarily blinding her. The gun's report echoed off walls, masking other sounds like the whisper of movement behind her. Where are you? Her voice cracked with panic. Show yourself. I'm everywhere. Otis's words seemed to come from every corner. Just like the fear you taught Ryland. Remember how you smiled when he flinched? When he checked every shadow. Something brushed past her in the dark. Jean spun, firing again. The bullet splintered wood, accomplishing nothing. Stop playing games. She backed toward what she thought was the kitchen. Fight me. Games. Otis's voice carried genuine curiosity. Like the games you played with our son? The little drawings you sent him, showing what you do. He needed to learn. Jean's back at a counter. You made him soft, weak. No. The voice came from directly behind her. You just never understood strength. Jean whirled, slashing with her knife. Otis caught her wrist with mechanical precision, applying pressure to specific nerves. The blade clattered to the floor. You see, he continued conversationally, real strength isn't about hurting people. It's about control. She tried to break his grip, but years of civilian life had left her soft. Let go. You'll what? Otis released her, stepping back into darkness. Hit me? Like you hit Rylan? Tell me, did it make you feel strong when he cried? Shut up. Jean groped for a weapon, finding a kitchen knife. You don't understand anything. I understand everything. Otis's voice moved around her. I understand how you chose Troy carefully, how you watched him hurt our son and smiled, how you planned each bruise, each break. He deserved it. Hysteria edged into her voice, crying over that stupid bear, begging to call you. The knife vanished from her hand. She hadn't even seen him move. The bear. Otis's voice hardened. The one you cut apart on his bed. Tell me something, Jean. Did you enjoy that? Making him afraid in his own room. I was teaching him. She backed away from his voice. Making him understand. Understand what? That his mother's a monster? That the person who should love him most enjoys his pain. A sound from the back room made them both turn. Rylan, still calling for his father. Don't you dare. Jean started toward the sound, but invisible hands caught her. He's mine. My son. No. Otis spun her against a wall, finally letting her see him clearly. You lost that right when you hurt him, when you chose cruelty over love. She stared into his eyes, seeing something that made her blood run cold. Not rage, not hatred, just cold professional purpose. What are you going to do? Her voice shook slightly. Kill me, kill you. Otis smiled, and the expression made her flinch. No, Jean, death is too quick. You're going to live. Live, and remember what happens when you hurt my family. She tried to knee him, but he moved like water, turning her own momentum against her. She crashed into furniture, disoriented. You can't do this. Panic replaced her usual control. I'll tell everyone. The police. Like Detective Farrow. Otis's voice carried almost gentle amusement. The one who's already confessed to taking bribes, to covering up child abuse. You're lying. Check your phone. The video's already gone viral. Troy's confession, too, such a touching story about guilt driving him to attempt suicide. Jean fumbled with her phone, seeing the truth in headlines and shared videos. Her carefully built world crumbling with each swipe. No, the phone slipped from nerveless fingers. This isn't possible, but it is. Otis moved through shadows like a ghost. Everything you built, every piece of power you thought you had, it's all gone. Your reputation, your freedom, everything. I'll find a way. She grabbed another knife from the counter. I always find a way. Not this time. Otis disarmed her with insulting ease. This time you learn about consequences, about what happens when you push someone too far. A noise behind her made Jean spin. Noah stood in the doorway to Rylan's room, the boy safely behind him. Dad. Rylan's voice was small but steady. It's okay, buddy. Otis never took his eyes off Jean. Close your eyes for a minute. This won't take long. You can't take him. Jean launched herself forward, all pretense of control gone. He's mine. Mine. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a lesson in helplessness. Every move she made was countered. Every attack turned against her. Otis moved with surgical precision, never hurting her, just demonstrating how completely powerless she was. See, his voice remained calm throughout. This is what Rylan felt, what you made him feel. Helpless, afraid, unable to stop what was happening. Please, she gasped as another attack failed. I'm his mother. No. Otis caught her final desperate swing. You're just a monster who hurt him, the devil who taught him about pain. And now, he smiled that terrible smile again. Now you learn about pain yourself. Jean saw something in his expression that broke her completely. Not violence, not revenge, just the absolute certainty that her world was ending. What are you going to do to me? I told you you're going to live. Live and watch as everything you built crumbles. As every person you hurt testifies. As every crime you committed comes to light. He released her, stepping back. Jean slumped to the floor, her perfect mask finally shattered. Take him then. Her voice was empty. Take everything. No, Jean. You don't understand. Otis moved to his son, gathering him close. I'm not taking anything. You destroyed it yourself. Every choice, every cruel moment, you built this ending with your own hands. Sirens wailed in the distance. Not Pharaoh's corrupt officers, but state police. Real justice approaching. One last thing. Otis turned to the door. Remember this moment. Remember what happened when you tried to break something unbreakable. When you created a monster you couldn't control. They left her there, surrounded by the ruins of her power. Through the window, they could see police lights painting the trees red and blue. Justice was coming. But not quick justice. Not merciful justice. The kind that stripped everything away, piece by piece, until nothing remained but regret and memories, just like she'd tried to do to Rylan, just like she'd created with her own cruelty. State police lights painted the Montana forest in alternating red and blue. Jean sat in the back of a patrol car, her perfect makeup streaked with tears, watching as her world crumbled piece by piece. Evidence bags filled with her artwork to Rylan. Computer records of her orchestrating the abuse. Troy's video confession playing on officers' phones. Detective Weber from the state police stood with Otis, reviewing documents on a tablet. We've got her dead to rights, the detective said. Child abuse, conspiracy, kidnapping, she's looking at 20 years minimum. Make sure she serves every day. Otis watched Jean through the car window. No deals. No mercy. After what she did, Weber's expression hardened. Trust me, the DA's out for blood, especially with the evidence about other kids. Other kids? Troy wasn't her first partner. We found records going back years. Different towns, different names. Always targeting single parents, always hurting children. Otis absorbed this, his expression unchanging. She'll try to manipulate the system. Turn on the charm. Not this time. Weber showed him more files. Your friend Noah's evidence is bulletproof. Every text, every email, every video, it's all authenticated. She's got nowhere to hide. Through the car window, Jean's eyes met Otis's. She mouthed words he couldn't hear, but her expression spoke volumes. Hatred, fear, the desperate rage of a predator caught in a trap. You want to speak with her? Weber asked. Last chance before we transport her. Otis considered it, then shook his head. Nothing left to say. He turned away, heading toward the ambulance where paramedics were checking Rylan. The boy sat wrapped in a blanket, Noah keeping watch nearby. Hey, buddy. Otis knelt beside his son. How are you holding up? I'm okay. Rylan's voice was small but steady. Mom didn't hurt me this time. Just scared me. You were very brave. Otis touched his son's uninjured hand. Braver than she'll ever understand. Is she going away? For real? Yes. For a very long time. Rylan was quiet for a moment, processing this. She said things. About you. About what you'd done. I know. Otis met his son's eyes. The truth is, I've done things I'm not proud of. But everything I did was to protect people. To stop monsters from hurting others. Like you protected me. Exactly like that. The paramedics finished their examination, giving Rylan clearance to leave. As they walked toward Otis's truck, the boy paused, looking back at the police car. Dad, do you think she ever loved me? Even a little. Otis chose his words carefully. I think she doesn't understand love the way normal people do. For her, it's about control. About owning people. But you love me different. Yes. Otis gathered his son close. Real love is about protection. About doing anything to keep someone safe. Noah approached, his expression grim. They found more at her house. Plans for other families, other children. She was going to expand her operation. Not anymore. Otis's voice carried finality. Now she gets to watch everything burn. Through the trees, they could hear Jean screaming as officers discovered more evidence in the cabin. Her perfect mask completely shattered, revealing the monster beneath. Time to go home, Otis said softly. Months passed. Winter gave way to spring, snow melting from Montana's mountains. In their new house near Flathead Lake, Otis watched Rylan heal slowly but steadily. The trials made national news. Jean's crimes exposed for the world to see. Troy testified from his hospital bed, still bearing the marks of Otis's education. Detective Farrow turned state's evidence, revealing years of corruption. But more importantly, Ryland smiled again. The nightmares came less frequently. The flinching at sudden movements faded. One morning, they stood together by the lake, watching sunrise paint the water gold. Ryland held a new stuffed bear, different from the one Jean had destroyed, but chosen with care. Dad! Ryland's voice was stronger now, more confident. Can we get a dog? A real one? Sure, buddy. Any kind you want. A big one. One that can protect people like you do. Otis smiled, seeing healing in his son's words. Like we both do. Strong people protect others, remember? Not like Mom. Ryland's voice carried new understanding. She thought hurting people made her strong. That's right. Real strength is about protection. About making sure monsters can't hurt innocent people. They skipped stones across the lake's surface, each ripple carrying away more of the past's poison. Somewhere in a maximum security prison, Jean sat in isolation, writing letters that would never be delivered, plotting schemes that would never work. She'd created this ending with her own cruelty. Built it piece by piece with every bruise, every cruel word, every moment of pain inflicted on an innocent child. The monster she tried to create had turned on her instead. Shown her what real strength looked like. What happened when you push someone too far? Dad! Ryland's voice pulled him back to the present. Are you okay? Yes, buddy. Otis gathered his son close. Just thinking about choices. What kind of choices? The kind that change us. Make us stronger or weaker. Better or worse. Ryland considered this with the simple wisdom of children. Like choosing to protect people instead of hurt them. Exactly like that. They stood together, watching the sun climb higher. Behind them, their new home waited, secure, peaceful, free from shadows. Noah would visit later, bringing books and games, helping build new memories to replace the old. Life would go on. Wounds would heal, but some lessons would remain, carved deep in bone and memory. Real monsters didn't hide under beds or in closets. They wore familiar faces and kind smiles. Real strength wasn't about causing pain. It was about preventing it. And sometimes, when you tried to break something unbreakable, you only succeeded in forging it stronger. In creating something beyond your control, that a protector instead of a victim, that a warrior instead of target, that a devil of your own making, come home to roost.